Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Welcome to the Saturday edition of Let's Talk with me, Julie Alli. The second day on the lockdown right here in South Africa. We do hope that things are going well with you wherever you may be, and making lots of dua that in a short space of time, hopefully by next week sometime or even sooner, we will notice a flatten in the curve of COVID-19. On the show today, we'll be talking with Mumtaz Suleiman about the book she has written, and it's a book about abuse against women. But first up, we have two teachers in studio with us, and they are able to be here because we know the schools are on lockdown as well. The teachers are Azra Mkota and the art teacher from the same school, who is Tsepo Panyane. Azra is going to talk about ILT. It's a learning therapy, integrated learning therapy. And Tsepo is going to talk about his art. He's an artist, a pencil artist, and we'll talk about all of that a little later on in the show. So let's get talking. Assalamu alaikum, welcome to the program.
Wa alaikum salam, jazakallah for having me over.
Great to have you here. And you both teachers at which school?
We both teach at Park Primary School, Indonesia.
Okay, and enjoying hopefully a well-deserved break.
Mixed emotions, I would say. Rightfully, we're on holiday until the 31st. After that,
we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes.
Oh, you're a teacher at a Model C school, I presume, or a government school?
A government school, yes.
Okay, so you're a teacher. What's your subject?
I'm actually the librarian at Park Primary for the past 13 years.
Okay.
I also help the English department, and over the last 1.5, almost 2 years, have been doing the integrated learning therapy at the school as well as privately.
Okay, so is ILT then being offered as a standalone subject at the school?
Well, it's more like an intervention method to assist the children who are struggling with certain barriers. So it's a means of the school allowing this therapy to try and serve as an intervention to these children.
Wow. Yes. I'm really encouraged that you've brought your art teacher in with you to talk about his art, which is obviously pencil art sketching, but also encouraged that you have an art teacher at a state school. Wow.
Yes, well, Mr. Panyani did show off some of his talent, which caught my principal, Mr. Khan's eye, and Mr. Tsepo will tell you more about how that all happened.
You talk about being the librarian at the school. In this day and age of technology, do we still have needs for libraries filled to the rim with books?
Well, I definitely think that you can never replace paperback books. And it is a big responsibility on myself as well as the teachers to encourage that. So I suppose it's the individual's input, but we're lucky that we have a community of children and parents who still love their reading regardless.
And they do access your services at school. You do find that there's a huge need for a fully equipped and a librarian.
Yes, well, I'm permanently based at the school, and we have a period we have children coming in every period. So it's a full day from grade R right up to the grade 7. They use the library every week. They get to borrow books, keep it with them for 2 weeks, English and Afrikaans. We've also introduced Zulu very recently to the foundation phase, so it's a really interactive library. We actually one of the few schools in Indonesia that has such a fully fledged library that works.
Well, I'm pleasantly surprised to hear that a state school has a fully fledged library, and may you carry on from strength to strength. But what we're really going to be talking about this morning is ILT, integrated learning therapy. Yes. Now, we've heard of all sorts of therapies to assist our children to truly get the best out of them. We've heard also in this day and age, and it probably has to do with diets, or it has to do with over-anxious parents, I don't know, or a combination of both. But we hear about ADD and ADHD. That's been the talking point for the longest time. We've also heard about, do you medicate them, don't you medicate them? What's ILT? How does ILT address that particular situation and other interventions that needs to be put in place apart from ADD in a child's learning?
So integrated learning therapy is a neurodevelopmental approach to assist children with learning and behavioral barriers. So what it does, it works on the neurodevelopment, which is the basic and the foundational systems of a child's development. And it's an interplay of all systems that work together. It's the neurodevelopment, your visual system, your auditory systems, your kinesthetic systems. And what it does, it integrates all these systems to be able to work together. So similarly, as we explain it to a child, is like our body is an interplay of systems, just like a bicycle. So if the bicycle has any component that's not functioning properly, you obviously won't be able to ride the bike. Mm-hmm. And our body is exactly the same. We like to involve the children and give them an understanding of exactly what the therapy is. And like you say, yes, it assists with ADHD, dyslexia, ADD. And when I say assist, I mean, like, yes, you are saying that a lot of parents are, and therapists and doctors are going the chemical route with your Ritalin and Concerta. And although there is a small percent of children who might need those drugs, if you can rectify the problem neurodevelopmentally from the foundational systems through movement exercises, there is a great chance of eradicating that behavior or calming it down without drugs.
How would a parent know that their child has a problem? I've also heard theories about different people being able to learn differently. So some people are visual learners, some are auditory learners, etc. But you're talking integrated learning. How does that fit into the picture?
Okay, so firstly, there's something called brain dominance. So that is who you are. You're either dominant on your right side or dominant on your left side, and some children have a mixed dominance. And from there you get the learning styles, like you're saying, the auditory learner, the visual learner, the kinesthetic learner. So we can never change dominance, but obviously as an integrated whole-brained individual, we want the systems to be helping each other for the child to not only rely on one, maybe the right eye for work, or maybe only have strength in his left hand to write. So what this therapy does is it does never change dominance, but it strengthens the other side. And then with your learning styles, obviously there is assessments where you can do to determine the child's strength, whether they are an auditory learner, a visual learner, a kinesthetic learner. And for me, that's really important. In fact, I encourage teachers in school as well to identify what type of learners they have, so that you know that in your lesson, you're appealing to all three types of children, and that none of them are losing out through your teaching method.
That would be the ideal scenario, would it not? But not all teachers are equipped to handle the different styles of learning. Just to focus a little bit on the kinesthetic learner. What is it that he or she displays, and how do they disadvantage themselves by just being stuck in one of those styles, being stuck in one of those styles?
So the kinesthetic learner is more the hands-on learner. It's the learner that needs to feel the object, needs to actually physically do the math sum or play with the object. Or in a mainstream setting, in a school setting, there's not always time to allow that learner to feel that and to learn through that way. Obviously, then it's a disadvantage for them. And even with the visual learner, if the teacher just stands in front of the class and has to just read out or teach through talking, there's nothing that they can see. There's no writing on the chalkboards, there's no visuals, there's no anything for them to stimulate. So then they just blank out and probably not absorb anything that you're saying. And then the auditory learner has to listen to tone of voice of the teacher. Wow. So sometimes it also works with the emotion of the child. Sometimes because they have such high sensory processing disorders, if the teacher's voice is too harsh, they might listen to the tone before they listen to the instruction.
My word.
So with that, we test the brain dominance, the hearing dominance, and we advise teachers exactly where to seat the children in the class. Because you might think, if I put him in front because he's naughty, he'll learn better. But if he has a sensitive ear, if he's using his left ear, he's going to listen to your tone of voice before he actually listens to what you are trying to teach him. So it might look like very simple things that we tend to overlook, but could actually make the bigger difference.
You've touched on something very, very important. I want to go for an ad break, but when we come back, I'd like you to expand a little more. You've touched on the issue on a tone of voice. That child is going to tune that teacher out completely because that tone of voice is going to be way too heavy or way too displeasing to him, and he's not going to learn anything.
No.
And oftentimes the teacher is not aware of the problem, neither are the parents, and then we pigeonhole that poor little child as having a learning disability.
Yes, it could be something as simple as that.
Let's go for an ad break. If you're wondering who this gentleman is in studio, sketching away furiously, if you have picked him up on the broad shot there, he is obviously Azra's colleague. They're both at the same school. He's at Tsepo Paniane, and he's doing a pencil sketch of me whilst we're talking to Azra. When we're done with Azra's interview, we'll be chatting to him and talk to him about his art, his pencil art, and also look at, hopefully, the finished sketching. He's sketching my face as we sit and speak. So we're going to have a look at that once he's done. Welcome back. Tsepo and Azra are in studio with me today. Azra is talking about ILT, Integrated Learning Therapy, and Tsepo is going to talk about his art, pencil sketching. Azra, back to you and our children, the different styles of learning. We just spoke about the sensory learner now, the auditory learner, obviously. It's frightening to think that this child is going to tune out completely because he finds the teacher's voice way too hard, way too harsh, way too uncomfortable. What and how do we remedy this?
So firstly, yes, the child does, like I say, tone of voice. And I think it's important for me to mention again that it puts the child into two different situations depending on the child. They either block you out and zone out and don't listen to anything that you got to say, or it actually puts the child into a stress response where they go into flight or fright, and now they're nervous. They don't know what's going on in their book. What are they doing? And
totally lost.
It is a rippling effect for the rest of their work. And how to remedy this, like I said, is to obviously try and ascertain the child's hearing dominance, and then take precautions like advise teachers where to seat them in the classroom, and then obviously try to strengthen the non-dominant side, which would be the right side, through specific movements and exercises that ILT does.
So let's talk about the therapy and also how it impacts on the other two, senses. And how will a parent know? How will I know that my child has a preference, obviously, or a problem? And how would I go about remedying? Would you suggest that just as a rule, before your child goes to school, like you have hearing tests and eye tests, etc., that a child undergoes some form of assessment to see what his dominance, learning dominance or brain dominance is, so that you speak to the teacher so that the child may be accommodated?
Yes, well, this integrated learning therapy starts assisting children from the age of 5 years old. So obviously that's the age when they're entering their nursery and grade R, and that's exactly where foundational systems need to start getting integrated so that the child can cope once they get into a mainstream school environment. And some of the SOS signals that teachers and parents can look out for is your anxious child, is your children who display low muscle tone, they have weak immune systems, they're fidgety, they can't sit still, or they'll sit down and do their homework, but then something will distract them, they can't complete a task on time, they're struggling with maths and reading.
What's that telling the parent? What's wrong with this child?
Right, so firstly, we need to understand that the children know no better way, no other way. They are like that. It's not like they were perfect and now they suddenly changed and something's wrong. So we cannot shout them. We have to be understanding.
And sadly, a lot of parents keep shouting at the children. You're fidgety, you're not paying attention.
Well, sit still.
You haven't got that right.
That's the one, sit still. And the child doesn't know what's going on. He can't help himself. The brain and the body are not working in sync with each other. So he knows no better way. If he's going to sit for too long and his proprioceptive system is finding it uncomfortable in a specific type of clothes that he's wearing, he's going to stand up and be the one sharpening his pencil at the bin to the teacher. That's like the child is disruptive.
Right,
you know?
right.
So it's all those SOS signals.
And that's in the classroom.
Yes,
What
at
else?
home.
Yes, he's fidgety in the home setting as well.
Fidgety in the home setting as well, messy eaters, picky eaters. Like I say, if it's time to do homework at home, they have a very short attention span. They get aggressive. They throw tantrums. They don't want to play outside. They don't want to have a lot of movement activities. Their muscle tone is low. And what that says to a parent is there's a neurological foundational system delay.
Right. Now, Azra,
yes.
everything you're saying sounds to me like this child has to be referred to an OT, an occupational therapist that's going to work on low muscles, etc. They also say a child that doesn't pay attention also then gets referred to an OT. Where does ILT come in? Is there a link between ILT and OT?
Yes, there's a lot of OT therapists that are studying the integrated learning therapy as well and using it as a complementary approach. ILT itself works with other helping professionals like OT, speech therapists, neurodevelopmental physiotherapists, behavioral optometrists, pediatricians. Wow. So it is a multifaceted approach, psychologist as well. So you would tend to have a referral to an OT or a speech therapist or even a psychologist where they do the rating scales to see where exactly is the child sitting according to their IQ. And integrated learning therapy is one of the other mediums which we offer to parents to say that, look, there is this therapy that's out there before you rush and resort to the Concerta and the Ritalin and try to, I'm not saying that OT and speech and therapy doesn't do what it needs to do, of course it does, but integrated learning therapy is also another means of assisting the child. And it's a holistic approach. I mean, you're working on the child's foundational systems, you're getting them to enhance their diets. So it's taking a lot into consideration.
When and how would you refer the child on to perhaps an OT? So how long would you work with this child when you realize there's something more that needs to be done? What is the child's behavior going to display that you realize that a further intervention is necessary here? Okay,
so initially, and the main part of the integrated learning therapy is the reflexes. And we'll talk about reflexes and how important it is to integrate reflexes. Because like I said, once we fix the foundation systems and then work higher up, we can assist the child. But basically, repetition is at the forefront of integrated learning therapy. The more often the children do the exercises and the parents do the exercises with the kids, it actually lays foundations, pathways in the brain. So neuroplasticity is a term that's referred to the brain being able to reshape itself. So what we do through movement therapy is we get the brain to reshape itself and build on these neurons and create these pathways. So it's not a quick fix. We certainly say that slow is fast and less is more. We believe in gentle enhancement because if you're getting the opportunity to rewire your brain, wouldn't you do that properly?
Absolutely.
So yes, we have an initial evaluation session where we evaluate everything that we need to of the child, and then we write out a program of 8 exercises. And then the parents go home with the kids and they do it actively with their children for 6 weeks.
It's not being done in class or at school?
Well, at school it is, I do it. And parents do assist at home over the weekend so the children are not having any gap days because we don't want that. But no, this therapy the parent takes home with them, and it's actually a really good bonding session because I'm a mom of 2 myself and I know how difficult it is to separate that attention. And at least you're getting that 10 minutes. All it takes is 10 minutes once the child gets used to the movement. And you're having that time, and it's not seen like a therapy where the child tends to think there's something wrong with me, I need to go to a lady, I need to have something done because there's something wrong with me. It's in the confines of your own home. The child is comfortable, and they do it for 6 weeks. And when they come back after 6 weeks, we re-evaluate certain aspects to see, have these exercises actually assisted? And depending on the input from the parent, at 6 weeks, we already start seeing changes. And so far, alhamdulillah, I've had lots of positive feedback from parents who are actually doing the program as it should be. And then if any exercises have done the job, we take out those exercises and then we put in
Introduce new ones.
Yes.
Okay, hold that thought. Let's go for another ad break. When we
sure.
come back, we'll talk some more. I'm so fascinated. I didn't realize that this therapy involves movement. And movement is appealing to children, isn't it? I mean, they want to move. They want to be active. Well, some anyway. But let's talk more right after the ad break. And Tsepo is furiously sketching away here. We're going to be joined by him in a short while. He's going to show us what he sketched, or what I look like, what he thinks I look like, but that in a little bit right after the ad break. Azra Kota is my guest. We're talking integrated learning therapy, and we're going to be wrapping up with her before we are joined by Tsepo, who is doing my portrait, a pencil portrait, and we're going to have a look at that, and we're going to talk about his art in a minute or two. Azra, back to you. And of course, there's a lot of important factors as far as integrated learning therapy is concerned. You said that it's important to pick up from the time they're born, or possibly a month old or whatever. What is it that moms look out for? It's all about flexibility, is it not? It's all about muscle tone.
Yes, so basically we say that from utero, the baby moves reflexively in the mom's tummy. And even after that, when the baby is born, they move reflexively to meet their needs. Like, you know, the rooting reflex where the baby turns to the side, and then they roll over, and then they discover, oh, I can get onto my tummy. And then from the tummy, they strengthen their neck, and then they sit. And then from sitting, they rock backwards and forward, and they start crawling. And all of these are termed as milestones. And the baby can reach these milestones with constant repetition of a specific movement.
Of course.
And obviously that repetition, which looks like a mundane task to you, is building neurons in the brain. Which is
Can I just interrupt you there for a minute? A lot of mommies are very keen on their babies reaching their milestones before they're meant to, and think that their baby is very clever or very cute by doing it. Even to the point, back in the day, I'm not sure if it's still happening now, but dumping or putting the child into a walking ring and making the child skip that very important step of crawling. What's that doing to the child, and what's your thoughts on the statement of mine?
Okay, so no go. Walking rings, bumbos, prams, those bouncers. You need your child to be moving. They need the floor. They need tummy time. They need floor time, because those reflexive little kicks and movements and toes in the mouth is all doing very important work in the brain. And those mobiles and things that you mentioned are actually what causes the barriers.
Ooh.
Because it's like a break in those developments or those neurons
Stages.
trying to make those networks in the brain. So we don't recommend that, obviously. The more movement the child does, the better pathways they're laying for themselves in the brain with repetition. And yes, once they reach these milestones, and crawling is really important for midline integration, where the left and the right brain need to be able to cross. So crawling on all fours is ideally what we want, not the bum shuffling, not the bear walks, because later on you will see that these children can't do any tasks that involve midline crossing, like buttoning shirts or tying their shoelaces,
Wow.
or actually writing from the one side of the page to the other without involving their whole body and those type of things. So yes, like I said, gentle enhancement, slow is fast. Moms do need to slow down and obviously
Allow the child his or her own pace.
Space.
When and why should they be worried and come to you at that stage, when a child should be crawling and not crawling yet, they haven't reached their milestones? Should they come to you? Should they go to an OT? What do they do?
No, so like I said, our therapy works from 5 years and older, but there are a lot of therapies that you can do in
at that early
stages, like the baby germs and the brain germs, or even then go to your pediatric neurologist and those type of things. But if you just read up about how you can just give your child that space and that floor time, they'll get it on their own. Yes, and so the reflexes are very important, because what happens is when the child doesn't reach their milestones on time, or with any disruptions in between, or even if they're sick very often and they take a lot of antibiotics, or they have ear infections, or even if that's not the case, even if they've reached all their milestones, but now as they're growing bigger and the tablet has replaced the coloring book and and all of those type of games.
Technology
has replaced everything. I mean, imagine children are not coloring anymore. They're just dragging. They're not actually building puzzles. They're just dragging items on a tablet, and it's slowing down that pathways that needed to be created through movement, and then that all causes these barriers.
Okay, so Azra, 2 questions. Diet, how important is it? And then in terms of, you spoke about these exercises, do you at any point stop, do parents, can they, when the child is 8 or 10 or 12, so it's not necessary for her or him to go on ILT, or is this one of those modalities that they could take into their teens and truly benefit from it, perhaps become amazing sports people because of this this amazing head start that they've had?
Okay, yes, well, diet is one very important component. Gut health has a direct impact on learning and the brain itself.
How so?
So obviously, whatever you feed into the gut will have an effect
Absolutely.
on the brain.
Too much sugar.
Too much sugar. You hear parents saying, sugar kills your brain cells. And that's true. What it actually does, it eats away at the myelin that protects the nerve cells of your brain. And trans fatty foods, deep fried foods, very sugar-rich diets, and all of that obviously has an impact on the child's learning style and the behavior, and sometimes it could even be a food intolerance, so a food, when you have something that your body is not tolerant to, the child doesn't know what's going on within themselves to be able to say, okay, this is what's wrong.
And that's the reason why we find children very unhappy, dissatisfied, irritable children.
Irritable, yes.
It's a lot of the times it's the food that they're ingesting, too much sugar, or there's an intolerance to the type of food you've given them.
Or even an allergy, yes.
Absolutely.
Mild allergy.
Do they think when and how do you stop, or can you continue with this?
So we go 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 18 weeks, 24 weeks. In a very serious case, we go up to 36 weeks or so. But personally, I have taken children up until 18 weeks where they've fully integrated and they've had their whole systems integrated and they've completed their programs, and alhamdulillah have done very well. My daughter, for one, as an example, is one of those.
Alhamdulillah. So you said 18 weeks.
18 weeks roughly.
What happens thereafter? What if you find that this interaction with your child was so meaningful and so fulfilling to both of you? Can mom and dad continue with because you've now given them the skills, can they continue doing these exercises with the child? How is it going to further enhance the child? Of course, the relationship is great because you're spending quality time with your child.
Yes.
But how does it further enhance the child? Or is it now not going to do anything? It's just going to be a fun activity?
Well, I think most importantly, if you've integrated those reflexes and if you've strengthened your internal systems, the 3 very important systems, which is your vestibular, responsible for balance, your proprioception, which is responsible for body awareness, and your kinesthetic system, which is your muscle recall of memory. If you've strengthened all of that, already you have put the child at an advantage because now everything is working as it should be. Once they complete and you see a little bit of a relapse and there are further activities that you can do to enhance eye therapy and other type of movement therapies that parents can continue doing. It's not something that will go on and on and on.
Indefinitely.
But I think that as a parent, if you know what, I had something that worked. And if I see a change in my child, there's no harm in going back to it and just redoing it. Or even consulting a therapist and saying, what, this is happening. What do you think I should do? Obviously, seeing the therapist and having a reevaluation done wouldn't be anything wrong.
Finally, in terms of a child going through this program, and once the end goal has been achieved, do you think that child is at an advantage regarding sport? Would he or she excel at sport?
Oh, definitely. You see a lot of children who don't have the muscle tone, who don't have that midline crossing, and who can't do the task, shy away socially. Because then they automatically feel, I'm not okay, I'm inadequate, I'm not going to be picked on that school team, I'm not going to be playing nicely with my cousins. And once they build that self-confidence, because now they can feel their body being able to do the tasks it wants to do, they'll start thriving in sports. In fact, I've had children at school where parents come and say, my child never took part in sports before and it's the first time she's going to be running. I've read a parent saying, my son went for a soccer training for 1 whole year. And after doing the ILT therapy with you, he's actually dribbling the ball through the cones. He's picked up a bat and played cricket or tennis with his father for the first time. I even had one of my children who finished the program. The mom actually wrote a lovely write-up for me. It's on my Instagram page as well, where she says that he loved soccer, but he was so aggressive on his way to soccer because he knew he's going to fall down, or he knew he's going to lose, or he's not going to score that goal, and he would get anxious. And after completing the therapy, they did like a baseline test, and he actually did amazing in that test, and his soccer skills just improved all the better. So yes.
How do people get in touch with you to enroll for the course? And I know you're based in Lenasia, but is this being offered all around the country?
Yes, well, you can visit the ILT website, www.ilt.co.za, and you'll find a lot of therapists around the country, in fact even in Cape Town as well. And you will definitely find their names listed there with their contact details. I'm in Lenasia. I'm, like I say, I do it at Park Primary School, but I'm also functioning independently. So should I give my cell phone number now?
Of course.
Yes, okay. So if you'd like to contact me and know more about this therapy, because there's a lot more that there is to know, you can contact me on 073 958 0002. Or you could email azrakota@yahoo.com and give my Instagram page a follow at Integrated Learning Therapy.
There you go. Thank you indeed for bringing this to our attention. Another modality where we can assist our children in being the best they can ever possibly be. And no doubt with the lockdown now, if parents have been and the child has been through this therapy, there's this time to continue with the therapy as well.
Definitely.
Thank you indeed. And we're now going for another ad break and be joined by your colleague, Tsepo, who is busy sketching away, doing a pencil portrait of me. Let's see what it looks like. Don't go away. We're going to take an ad break and we'll be back with you in a minute or two and talk to the artist in studio. In the next 12 minutes, we're going to indulge in a bit of visual art. My guest is a pencil art sketcher. He's also a teacher at the Park Primary School in Lenasia, and he's very proud about what he does, and he does it beautifully. Whilst we were interviewing Azra Kota, he was busy doing a pencil portrait of me, of myself. Let's see what that looks like. You be the judge and you decide whether you think it's an accurate drawing of what I look like. Let's talk to the young man and hear where and how he has followed this journey in his life. Morning, welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here, and I see you seem to specialize in pencil art sketching.
Yes.
Why is that?
Now, the thing is, it's a passion I got thinking of way back. People forgot about where they come from. Now, looking at black and white, I get more inspired when I use pencil.
Really?
Though I can do different medias, but I get more inspired using pencil.
Why is that?
You know, it came a time whereby I tried using paint, I tried using other medias, but then when I use color, I realized that when you see on the phones, people are enhancing. They're trying to look beautiful. So I'm thinking, let me take you way back and see yourself how you are.
How you truly,
yes, how you totally
what you look. So let's show that portrait up to the camera, the one that you did of me. You said to me, do you want to show it up to that camera,
yes,
please?
Now this is just a sketch. Ne?
Is this called a sketch?
A sketch, yeah.
What's the difference between a sketch and a full portrait?
Okay, a full portrait is when you do a final touch-up where now there's no unnecessary detail. What's this detail? This is not planning. This is a plan.
Oh, is this a planning sketch?
Yes.
Okay, and that's supposed to be me.
Yes.
And that's why I'm not agreeing that it looks like me, because you haven't completed it. Can you just hold it up slightly higher? Okay, so that's what the camera, that's what you're telling the camera
Yes,
that
but now
I
look
like.
at this. I did this in few minutes.
You did that in about 45 minutes?
Yes.
How long does it normally take you to do a sketch, to complete it?
To complete a sketch, it takes me an hour.
Okay.
But now with the limited time I had, then I had to just at least make a small resemblance of you.
And there was a bit of stress involved as well, because you knew you were on camera.
Yes,
you can put that down.
Okay.
And by the way, what do you charge for something like that?
Okay, if you'd have a A4 size, full framed, I would charge you like 400 rands.
Okay.
But depending on size again, you could maybe want a bigger size, or you want more people there, the prices differ.
Of course.
Yes, and again, it goes with details. Ne?
Okay,
Yeah.
so the more detail, the more,
details, yeah.
more time spent, and the more
Yes.
concentration, and of course,
Yes.
you're going to be charging more, and rightly so. How did you land up at Park Primary School? And I'm so delighted to hear that a government school is offering art lessons to the children. Apart from the beauty of art, in terms of people and their self-esteem, what do you think it does for children, learning and expressing themselves through art?
Now, for me, it's not just about learning. It's about your ability to focus again. And again, it's not. I always tell my learners that don't just do this for fun, or maybe I know you want to be doctors, I know you want to be lawyers, but you can take this for something you can fall up to. Because if you see people getting older, going to your pension, then you have nothing to do. This can relax your mind, actually, get you to focus again.
A hobby.
A hobby.
A meaningful hobby.
Yes, and again, I'll encourage the youth to consider this, because if you can look at me before teaching, this is what I was doing full time. And I managed to take care of myself, take care of my family, through this as it is like this.
Were you always artistically inclined as a child? And when did you decide that you can make a living out of this?
Okay, I was always artistic. I come from an artistic family.
Wow.
So now what happened is, I started doing this from primary school as a hobby, just playing, fooling around. So I wanted to be a magician, actually. So I like entertaining people. I like making people laugh, exciting people. I like to relieve people from stress. So I tried magic. I failed to get the skill of magic. I said, God, how can I get the skill of magic? I don't know how. So I had to somehow hustle, trying to make a living. So my family was not supportive to this, because they wanted me to be a doctor and stuff like that. So I kind of had to amaze them, shock them, and make them see what I see into this.
But you've been given a talent, a gift by God, by Almighty God.
Yes. So then, later in the stage, I started drawing people. I draw people. The first time I started doing this as a business, I draw this one other lady. So when I draw her, she was so excited. Ne? She cried, actually. So when I said, why are you crying? She said, you actually showed a resemblance of me. Like, it's been long for me seeing how I look like. Nowadays, we put makeups. We don't see ourselves. But now, you actually showed me as I am. And it kind of makes me want to go back to my true self.
Wow.
Then I decided, no, I'm going to take this as a career. I'm going to draw people. I'm going to make people look beautiful. I want, as you said to me, you said I mustn't put wrinkles and stuff. So the aim is to just beautify you and make you see how beautiful you are. In that sense. Yeah.
Okay. There must have been very lean times along the way as well.
Yes.
Did you think the art was going to sustain you, that you'd be able to support a family? Was there ever a time when you felt you want to throw it up and find a more stable, meaningful job? You
know, the funny part is when people see me, who've been seeing me for years, they get shocked to say, you're still doing art. How surprising you're still doing. You know what, I always had a vision with this. I always knew I'll become the best, even though there was hard times. I told my students when I started volunteering at Spectrum Primary School after I matriculated, I told them, you know what, one day I'm going to teach in a school where the learners will appreciate art. I don't know which school. It can be a model school, model C school, or something, but I'll reach that gap. And looking at me teaching now in Park Primary School, whereas you asked me how I got to Park Primary School, I was doing my workshops. I was sketching, so I was in a book quiz. So when I was in a book quiz, there was principals and teachers and stuff. So I had my stands, I was sketching. Customers were so excited Then I saw this guy, this man, Mr. Khan, standing, folding his arms. I'm like thinking, why? Who's that man? Why is he not coming closer? And then later he said to me, you know what, I love your work. I'd like you to come to my school. But it was not only him who discovered me. It was him and Mrs. Rangen. And it was also Mrs. Jenny. So they had a talk together to say, you know what, we need this guy. So then I had to remind him that, no, I came years back to your school. But I think that this was a God-given time for me to come now, looking at the fact that how I have improved.
Have you found that you improve over time? And as we sit and speak here now, what do you believe needs to improve as far as your work is concerned? And how long is it going to take you to get to that point?
Okay, so let me show you a small example of this. This is how I used to draw. This was the first drawing I did of my dad.
Okay.
In paper, whereby I wrote in these drawings, and just to cut it off, can you see the improvement you see here?
Oh,
There's an
absolutely,
improvement,
absolutely.
So I'll say to you, there will be an improvement. There needs to be improvement. But why am I saying there will be improvement? Because my aim is not just to draw. Remember I said to you I wanted to be a magician. Yeah, so my aim is to, when I sketch you, I'm going to sketch you maybe 5 minutes, 4 minutes, 2 minutes.
Okay.
Or even I can just look at you and I say maybe go backwards and I sketch you and you see yourself. Or maybe I can just look at you and say, okay, go out, let me sketch you. So that's the kind of magic I want to bring to light. So someone can say, you fool, you're okay now, you're an artist now, but this is not where I want to be at now. So I want to be the fastest artist, what I'm trying to say.
Okay,
Yeah.
We've come to the end of the interview. What important message do you want to leave young people with, a big impression you want them to think about what you've said, and other young people who are struggling artists? And in this day and age when unemployment is so high, it's tough to find people to buy your work because there just isn't enough money to go around. What will you say to them?
You know what I'll say to them is, number one, prayer. God always has a plan for you. Random things like, think of something random and think, like maybe gardening or what's this? Anything, just think. So think out of the box. So with art, I would encourage the youth to take it serious, because of it somehow came as a shock to me that now I am able to sustain my family and myself through this. But then in a later stage, they'll soon realize the importance of drawing.
Well, that's where we leave it. Thank you indeed for being with us. Thank you for being such an encouragement and inspiration to young people at Park Primary School, where they can realize you can be anything you want to.
Yes.
You just need to apply your mind.
Yes.
Good luck and God bless.
Thank you.
And there you have it, a young artist at Park Primary School talking about his passion, and that is pencil portrait sketching. That is a medium he prefers. He also told me off air that this was a God-given gift, but at some point in time he also went back to school, so to speak, just to learn the finer details of art. So something for us to think about. In a minute or two, Mumtaz Suleiman will be joining us to talk about her book, a book that's been waiting inside of her for a long, long time, a book that she's put off writing, but finally drummed up the courage to write the book. The book has finally been published, and she's going to talk about the book, what it means to her, how it's turned her life around, and what you will get out of reading the book. Welcome back. I'm so pleased to have an amazing, strong, fascinating woman in studio with me. Her name is Mumtaz Suleiman. She's here to talk about the book she's written. It's called A Pinch of Saffron. Hasn't been launched yet. Inshallah, post-COVID-19, post-lockdown, post-Ramadan, inshallah, post-everything. She'll be launching her book, and I'll be certain to attend. A very brave young woman talking about, it's a memoir, it's her life story. She talks about abuse, how she's turned it around, how it's impacted in all of their lives. But she doesn't only talk about abuse in her own life, she talks about 5 generations. And I think I've heard this discussion before. I've heard that if abuse happens in a family, it gets carried down generation to generation. It's carried in the DNA. Let's get talking to the gorgeous Mumtaz Suleiman. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you for this opportunity.
My pleasure entirely, and I'm so thrilled that you've come in to talk to us. We know that women abuse is top of the agenda, not only amongst communities, but even government. So it's something people are now finally beginning to take seriously. And I know you've covered a lot of this in your book. This is your own personal story. But when and why did you believe it was important to tell your story? And do you believe that through your story and other stories that are being told, that men, our patriarchal men, are now going to sit up and take notice?
Absolutely. I think the purpose of the book was precisely that. So women can move past the victim mode and shift to taking their power back, and men can respect that as well. I also think that we get stuck in a place called blame. And so it's always his fault, and we need to shift that consciousness with a lot of tools that I highlight in the book. 6 of the major tools which can also take you through your COVID experience, because
which is
prayer, meditation, exercise, affirmations, gratitude, and forgiveness.
Absolutely.
So you can incorporate all 6 tools just during a 1-hour running program. So what I tend to do is after Fajr Salah, I meditate for an hour, I do a little bit of Quran. 8 to 9, I get 20 minutes of running, and I get my tasbihs done. Astaghfirullah, la hawla wa la quwwata, and Durud Sharif. Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakil for them. Healing of the entire planet.
Absolutely. MashaAllah.
And then I switched on to gratitude during that exercise period, and forgiveness and affirmation. And this is not something that it's just a tool that you pick up whenever you need it. It's got to be consistently done every single day of your life for you to be able to shift. So yes, there were times, my book talks about 5 generations of pain, different kinds of abuse, and the patterns that you continue to attract. So I attracted an abusive husband. 15 years, I was treated like a mop until the day I rose and I decided to take my power back, and I said, no more shifting blame, no more victim or victor, no more who's right and who's wrong in tit for tat, but I needed to fix myself up. And so I shifted, and the process was gradually, it didn't happen by a day or a month.
But that first day, when you stood up to him and you said, stop it, enough is enough, do you think you shocked him into reality to realize that what he's doing is wrong? And why was he beating up on you, whatever his frustrations were or, are, why was he using you as a punching bag?
Yes, I think he shifted because he watched me not blaming him. I'd taken up a friend had recommended Ashika Singh's Heal Your Life. So I did that program. And so every single day, if he'd walk in from work into the lounge and I was in the lounge, I'd move my space to the kitchen. If he came into the kitchen...
So you were avoiding him?
I wasn't avoiding him, I just shifted my space. But he would watch me that if he tried to pick on me, I'd pick up a tool. I'd either go into prayer or I'd pick up my tasbih and I'd read my tasbih, just so I could center myself and feel grounded. So I didn't force him to change, and he didn't change immediately. It was a gradual change. I'd taken 1 year sabbatical. I left him for a year.
Okay.
So people had thought I'd gone to live with my dad to learn the flooring business. When I didn't, I took a separation. But I think in that time he realized that he needed to up his game, because he's either rowing this boat with me or he's out. But I have to share with you something very interesting.
You're still in a relationship with him. You're married to him. You're 30 years married?
28 years married.
28 years.
And the last 10
years. But there was
years,
a 1 year gap in that marriage, that separation.
Yes. So that 1 year was my sabbatical. But so it took me many years to scratch. So when I went through him dragging me, I remember, I think I talk about it in the book, with my friends, and I'm ready to go out all dressed up, and he drags me by my hair across the tiled passage, and whatever comes in his way, he would take it and bash me. So my body was bruised, my face was bruised, my friends didn't know what to do. Life went on as usual. But for me, I realized that it wasn't my dignity and shame that was taken away that day. As I proceeded with healing modalities, my dignity and shame was snatched away such a long time ago. So long, Julie, Auntie Julie, it can read Once Upon a Time.
Right.
So memories from my childhood started surfacing because I didn't live with my parents. I was 6 years old, barely between 6 and 8 years old. And I would have, let's call him the visitor, because it's a road I don't want to venture into yet. The visitor would plaster his hands over my body.
So you were abused, sexually abused?
Yes.
From a tender age of 6 or 8 years old?
Yes, it could have been between 6 and 8. I can't tell you the exact time, but these memories only surfaced. Remember, I'd taken this abuse with my husband for 15 years, and so only well into my 30s, I got the help that I needed.
Did you believe at any point that you deserved it because
Yes.
you had done something wrong
Yes.
to attract all of this bad attention to you?
Absolutely, I felt not good enough, and I felt I deserved it. So when anybody offered me real love, I would build walls. I didn't want real love because love was pain. I needed pain to know what love is. And so I think that's why I attracted these patterns. So the 6-year-old girl had gone through this abuse with this visitor. I remember the hands going over the mouth and me being unable to breathe and actually holding my breath just because I don't know what to expect. I didn't know what it was. I remember myself for very long during my married life also sleeping in fetal position, holding here and holding here.
Trying to protect yourself.
Yes, trying to protect myself. I don't think I even had a first night when I'd married, but my husband was patient about that. Because there was lots to deal with. I didn't open up this can of worms until way into my 30s. Now let's go back in time, because after 6 to 8 years old, I'm not living with my parents still. I get to madrasa. This could have been between 11 and 13. I developed a lot quicker than most girls. I got my period a week before my 12th birthday. I obviously appeared far more desirable than most 11 or 12-year-olds.
And all of these things that were haunting you, all these ghosts, that visitor that was sexually abusing you all of this time, it might have stopped or not. Mm-hmm. You were carrying all that guilt and shame, and you never ever shared it with anybody.
No, besides my mum.
And what did she say about it?
My mum lived 100 kilometers away from me. I only visited her twice a year. So it was difficult. My mum had given me support. I mean, the 11-year-old girl had met the madrasa's principal. Now remember, you're putting your child with role models, real role models. And this is supposed to teach you about Islam and teach you what's right and what's wrong and a God. And those experiences robbed me from so much because I jumped right out of the pot. I had to defy a system that failed me. The system had failed me. I did piercings, I journeyed all along.
Were you abused at the madrasa as well?
Yes, I was abused at the madrasa.
People often say that, sadly, with due respect to you, that people who are abused go through life attracting other abusers to pounce on them.
That's very true.
It's a certain look or a way you behave or engage with people.
You become far more promiscuous, or you tend to shy away from your sensuality or your... So I believe that 33 years of my life, I was denied of a great sexual life because I didn't want anybody to go further than that. I didn't know. For me, love was pain. It manifests into other illnesses. So my womb was gone by the time I was 38 years old. I think I had to have an emergency hysterectomy. Womb was gone, early setting of menopause. Now I've had the last 10 years of great healing. But really, what life do I have? I've given up the better part of my life.
Stand by, we're going for an ad break.
Thank you.
She says that she's given away the better part of her life through all of the sexual abuse from a tender age of 6, but she looks a picture of perfect health. Alhamdulillah. I couldn't believe she has a 28-year-old daughter. She looks very, very young, carries her age beautifully. She's here to share her story, a very sordid story of sexual abuse and of abuse in general, but how she takes back her power. Don't go away. We'll be back with you in a minute or two. Mumtaz Suleiman is an ex-educator, now a businesswoman, and of course an author, written a book called A Pinch of Saffron. It's going to be launched sometime soon. She's talking about a story of utter and unthinkable abuse from the age of 6 in a very abusive marriage. Alhamdulillah, 28 years later, she's still in the marriage. A lot of people would say that you deserve the abuse that was meted out to you because you chose to remain in that marriage. What's your response to that?
I agree with that. Absolutely. I think women need to feel good enough and they need to value themselves more and not feel like the mop all the time, cleaning up
Why
the dirt.
did you remain in the marriage and ongoing abuse till you took your power back?
Besides love being pain, where will I go? What will the people say? What will the people say? What will the people say? I also have in the book where I begin my opening chapter is I give a vivid description of sleep paralysis that I'd suffered through all my life. And the Maulanas I visited. And so I touch on the evil eye and Jadoo because I was going completely cuckoo. Sent from this Maulana, I think I visited every Maulana from Johannesburg to Benoni, from Lens to Hekpoort. You ask me, I'll tell you I visited. Each one made me more crazy. I swore I could have been a part of the zombie apocalypse because everybody became a suspect.
And during this time, you were still raising 3 children.
I was still raising 3 children.
And you were still in the relationship with your husband.
Yes.
Apart from the 1-year sabbatical, what support were you getting? What were you thinking? Did your husband ever at any time, or the in-laws for that matter, say that he should divorce you?
No.
Because
My mom,
clearly this was a very dysfunctional relationship.
My mom's always been my mentor and someone that you can just speak to. She's just being in her. She reminds me so much of you. I think it comes from the name Julie.
Alhamdulillah.
It's comforting.
Thank you for
love,
the compliment.
There's anchoring, and that's exactly how I feel now sitting across you. I feel like
Thank
I'm
you.
with my mom.
Thank you.
So she'd always, support
All right,
me.
so what does your husband say? I mean, you talk about him being an abuser. Is he not afraid or a bit embarrassed about the fact that once the book is read, people are going to kind of possibly look at him askance thinking, you were an abuser.
Yeah.
She's a great woman. She's still stuck with
Yes.
you.
I think the chapter in my book is called Ashiki, dedicated to him after the turning point. And people need to understand that I have so much of respect for a man who's walked further than I have
Wow.
in this journey. Because for him to have accepted and acknowledged that this is what I did, I'm ashamed, help me.
Wow. So did he go for counseling?
He didn't go for counseling. He would sit in during my workshops. Well, obviously in the other room, I run workshops for ladies. I don't charge them because I need for them to feel empowered. And you know what? Allah Ta'ala has blessed me in other ways.
Alhamdulillah.
So yes, and we practice the tools at home. So like I said, the tools is affirmations, gratitude, forgiveness, prayer, meditation, and prayer, meditation.
Gratitude.
Gratitude.
Okay, we don't want to give away too much. We want people to go out and buy the book when it is available. We also want people to join you for these classes. I'm top of the list. The next time you're rolling them out, please give me a tinkle. I will join you.
Absolutely.
But that being said, what has the book done for you? Your sense of self, your well-being, your relationship with your husband, and more importantly, you know, it's not me, myself, and I. We have at least 16 other people in our immediate circles that get touched by any positive or negative experience in our lives. So that's your children, your in-laws, your outlaws.
Yes.
How's that all played out?
During the journey, there are some people that you need to love from a distance. Some people are toxic for you. Some foods are toxic for you. Places are toxic.
I agree, people can be very toxic and you need to move away from them.
You need to move away. That doesn't mean that you hate them, because you need to shift to forgiveness, and forgiveness doesn't mean condoning a person's actions. It just means I'm setting myself free. I love you, I pray for you, but I'm going to do it from a distance and pray that your consciousness shifts at some point.
And just go on with your life.
And go on with your life, yes.
Were your children not perhaps embarrassed? I'm sure, look, the book hasn't been launched, but I'm sure that you've got young adult children.
Yes.
They've read the manuscripts, etc. Embarrassed and say, Mom, you've put too much of yourself out there. You're way too candid.
Yeah.
But why did you do it? People are going to maybe judge us.
My children have moved past what other people think.
Wow.
And the judgment, the self-righteous accusations or criticism, they've moved past it all.
How do you believe this book is serving you, your husband who abused you for many, many years? Alhamdulillah, you're now in a very fulfilling, loving relationship. Your children and other abused women. Because I guess these are the people that matter.
Yes.
That matter in your life, not forgetting your supportive mom, of course.
I think my main purpose for doing the book is I want a better life for our children, for our planet, better than what we've been served, because we were not given these platforms where we could stand and speak. And so a lot of them stay stuck in that situation or in the shackles of what society thinks, or this is my place, I need to make sabr.
And embarrassed that you're in an abusive relationship, because our community, because it's such a patriarchal community, or if you are not accepted fully by the in-laws, or if you were not the favorite daughter or the favorite child or the favorite sibling, whatever the story might be, would put the blame squarely at your feet. You're not a good enough daughter, you're not a good enough mother, you're not a good enough daughter-in-law, and more importantly, you deserve it because you've asked for it.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
How do you respond
How
to
do I
them?
respond when they ask me? Sorry,
And they're going to say that after they read the book as well. You deserved it. You've chosen to remain in that relationship, and you must be doing something wrong.
Yeah.
It can't be all his fault. What have you done for issues to get so terribly out of control that you end up getting a hiding of your life?
And how do I respond to them about that? I think, Auntie Julie, I'm past affirming and searching for validation from anybody. I've passed that. I've passed the answering to the questions. I would just continue being me.
Continue working on your wholeness.
Yeah, because whatever happens on the outside doesn't affect me on the inside. I'm so whole and complete. And I know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has never left me, despite the judgments I do face on a daily basis, because this is not the way I dress. And I believe that, like my book, the original title is something else. It contains profanity, but we sticking to a pinch of saffron, because I think that's what the South African market wants, because they're just walking with so many masks. And don't judge a book by its cover.
Literally and figuratively. Let's. I'm so happy to hear that you've made up with your husband, that he's changed, you've changed. He saw the shift in you, and it's made him reassess his life, his stance in this whole relationship, and you've come together in love, mercy, and kindness.
Absolutely.
Alhamdulillah, may continue to be so. But how much of your sexual abuse in the early years of your life damaged the relationship? You have to take a little bit of blame,
yes,
or you've got responsibility for that, and perhaps because of that you pushed him away, and he didn't know
yes,
how to react. He didn't know how And this is the only way he knew how to respond to you.
No, you're absolutely correct. It was. That is why I'm saying that the earlier years had robbed me and shattered so many lives in the process. It wasn't
And damaged
fair.
you very
And damaged,
badly.
Yes. Not just me, he also had to deal with it. He had to be very patient. And
the patients obviously tested his
ego.
Absolutely. And this is the only way he knew how to respond.
Yes.
Other
The
women,
knowledge he had at that time, yeah.
absolutely. Other women in a similar situation as you, being sexually abused at an early age, or perhaps just being in a very, very abusive relationship, what is the book going to do for them when they read it? And in this day and age where we're talking about stop, you know, I know there's a campaign that's going to break right after we come out of lockdown by Islamic Care Line, Slashing the Silence. They talk about sexual and general abuse against women. How's that going to add to the narrative and change the narrative that men should sit up and start respecting us, girls, women, our mothers, our sisters, our daughters?
I like what you're saying. You know, men are only acting from the spaces with the knowledge they have. It's like you mentioned earlier that they have these role models. So I'm sorry to say, but if the mothers are not teaching their children and they're not providing finishing school for them there, it's not the wife's problem. I'm teaching my son to the best that I can respect a woman. The respect you give me, you're going to give your wife. The mothers have failed their children because they
What about the
spoon-feed them.
fathers?
Yes, and the fathers walk in with this authority and control in the home that I am the boss and what I say goes. And yes, it doesn't always have to be like that. The woman needs to have a little bit of a voice. She needs to have a face. She needs to have a voice. She's a human being. She needs to be treated.
How far spread do you believe is this type of abuse in South Africa? I'm not going to say our community because what perpetuates in our communities is happening all around the world. How deep-rooted is this problem?
It is.
You've been brave enough to write a book. What more can we do?
What more can we do? You know, I think that we have enough platforms that are available. We just don't, the women just don't have the courage to speak out. Or the men for that abuse, there are men also that are abused.
Absolutely.
But they're afraid. I think it's fear that keeps them bound. And again, back to what will people say. You need to go beyond those limitations and the belief systems. What will people say? What others think is not your problem. What others are doing
not
is
your
not
business.
your business. Yeah.
Okay. 2 minutes to wrap up. Do you believe that this is a very deep-rooted problem in South Africa?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I think maybe the education systems need to implement something there with affirmations and gratitude and giving the tools so the kids feel empowered.
How do we protect our children? How do we protect vulnerable 6-year-old girls and boys? We send them off to schools, madrasas, wherever it is, whatever school, whatever institutions of learning, with the best of intentions, and then find that they've been sexually and physically abused. What needs to happen to protect our children? We know what's happened at Parktown Boys with the swimming coach, and then many such stories playing out.
It's a lack of education, and it's a lack of communication. Parents need to, it starts off at home. Make your child feel the two things they need is love and anchoring. They need to feel safe, and they need to know it's okay to speak. My body is my body. I've taught the kids at home because I've got 6 little soldiers there with my sister's boys. I've taught them if anybody touches you, you scream rape. It's okay, you just scream rape because everyone's going to come running. So they need to understand that their body is their body. And
it's sacred and belongs
to them. It's sacred, it's a temple for the divine.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you indeed for coming in and sharing something that is so personal. Lots of luck with the launch of the book. I certainly will try and be there, inshallah. Thank you for being so brave, for coming on to such a public platform to share your story of abuse. And thanks to your husband and the rest of your support system that made you go ahead, believe in yourself, and to write the book, to tell your story, which needs to change other people's lives.
Absolutely. I think a salute to them at home. Thank you so much. But I need to ask you a favor. If you could just ask the viewers, my international market on the book has already, it's already in the final editorial process. South African is a Breeze publisher.
Right.
I'm still toying. I don't know how well South Africa is going to receive the title with profanity or a pinch of saffron. See what the viewers think. If
Inshallah.
they can.
Do you have a web page? Are you on Facebook?
I've got my Instagram.
Are you Instagram? Just give us...
Taz_Suleiman.
Right, so let's hope that they come to you, that visit your Instagram and put down their comments. Thank you indeed. You're one
Thank you.
brave
When I grow
lady.
up, I'm going to be you.
There you have it. A brave lady indeed. Mumtaz Suleiman talking about rape, abuse, sexual and all sorts of abuse from the age of 6. She's written a book. She's still in the marriage with her husband who abused her for many years. Alhamdulillah, it's a happily ever after story. Let's hope and pray all of you women out there and men who are victims of abuse, take back your power and make yourself be counted. Till the next time, as always, take care. Please stay protected. Remain in your homes. Lockdown is a serious business. And inshallah, in a very short space of time, we'll be back to normal, inshallah. Till the next time then, it is Assalamu alaikum and Khuda Hafiz from me, Julie Alli.